And now I welcome Marc Middleton with a message for the children.
So welcome back to A Time with Children. During our Lenten journey, we've talked about the numbers of Lent. We've talked about the number 40 and how it represents the different journeys of our life and throughout the Bible, specifically more so the 40-day journey we all go through during Lent. We talked about the number 3 last week and how it represents completeness, specifically the completeness of Jesus and what he did for us. Today, we focus on the next number. Today, we focus on the number 2, and the number 2 represents a union, a division, or a verification of facts by witnesses. And the main example of how you've seen the number 2 is the Bible itself. It's separated into 2 parts, or 2 testaments, if you will. Jesus often sent the disciples out in groups of 2 so that they couldn't only testify about Jesus' teaching and miracles, but also be witnesses to those who believe or didn't believe. You can see the story of Jesus entering Jerusalem for an example of that. 2 can only convey comparison and contrast and refers to the differences between the Old and New Testament. Jesus pointed out 2 rules that we should also follow in the New Testament: to love God with all of our heart, our mind, and our soul, and to love others as we love ourselves. Now, one of my favorite instances, and one of the most eye-catching instances to me of the number 2 showing up in the Bible, is this verse that comes up in John 11:35. And it says this: Jesus wept. This is when he had heard that Lazarus had died. And when first reading our scripture for today's service, it was interesting to me that it was also 2 verses long and talks about Jesus' thirst. Both stories here represent a liquid or water of some kind, and we know the chemical formula for water is H2O. It consists of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And the main reason why I bring liquids into this is because Jesus was offered 2 different drinks while he was on the cross. Thank you to Rachel Deshone for pointing this story out to me and to the rabbit hole of information I went down. It was very interesting, so I'm excited to share it with all of you today. So Jesus was offered wine twice. He refused the first one, but took the second one. Why? The first drink was wine mixed with myrrh. Now, this was an old tradition from the respected women of Jerusalem. They offered this drink to decrease the sensitivity of the excruciating pain. So it's a numbing agent, if you will. But Jesus refused it because he wanted to endure with full awareness the sufferings that were endured by him. The second drink came after some bystanders through Jesus was calling for some bystanders thought Jesus was calling for Elijah. They ran to fill a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. Now the thought afterwards was, let's see if Elijah's going to come and save him. Now this sour wine drink is mentioned in the Old Testament as something that was considered refreshing. In the Greek and Roman culture, it's known as a common beverage of the hard workers and of the soldiers because it relieved thirst more effectively than water. Plus it was cheap. This drink wasn't meant as something awful to give Jesus, since they wanted to wait and see if Elijah was coming to save him, so they wanted to keep Jesus conscious for as long as possible. So the first drink, the wine mixed with myrrh, was designed to dull Jesus' pain, to keep him from having to endure this suffering with full awareness. This wine is the one he refused. The second drink, the sour wine, was given to him to keep him awake for as long as possible, thus having to prolong his suffering. That is the one that Jesus drank. Most people, I included, would have probably taken the first drink so that way we wouldn't feel the pain. But Jesus took the second. He knew there was going to be no shortcuts to save humanity. At the cross, Jesus drank this wine for us so that we might enjoy the love and grace that God gives. Sometimes we second guess ourselves, and I do it more than I care to admit, because we don't feel confident about the initial decision that we make. And oftentimes our second choices can be the actual more productive route. It's often because we have more doubt and less confidence in our own decision-making process. So the second choice we're able to make can make sense a little bit more, and it comes after we have thought things through a little bit more as well. The second choice that can either reinforce that the first is right or wrong, but it often takes 2 points. Jesus was offered these 2 drinks and took the second. We're offered 2 choices, to follow the world or to follow Jesus. Oftentimes we can look at the world and see that Jesus is the ultimate answer. So I challenge you this week that when you're facing a decision, that you invite Jesus into the conversation and listen to what he tells you. And sometimes that second opinion is the one you should follow. We'll see you next week as we talk about the number 6 as we continue our journey from the numbers of Lent. I'll see you next week.